I spent the last 2 days reading the Jack Smith report in my lives. So I'm going to post them in 4 or 5 sections here, 4 or 5 parts, in case you want to hear the entire report read out loud. I've only edited out my commentary that I was saying in the live to people, and most of my personal opinion. I've tried to just leave it to reading the actual document. If you want people to hear this and see this information, please leave a comment telling me something that you thought and repost the video. And remember that fact checking is free. You can go to the document on the Department of Justice and read it yourself. And all I am doing is reading the text. I'm not creating any information myself. All of this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Thank you. It's broken into several pieces. His pressure, so it's the results of the investigation are broken into 5 parts. Orange's pressure on state officials, Orange's fraudulent elector plan, Orange's misuse of official power through the Justice Department, Orange's pressure on the vice president, and Orange's supporters attacking the Capitol. He would, in this report overall, I'm just going to tell you right now in the beginning, that the report itself, let me find it. I'm going to go to ChatGPT. The report itself, had they gone through with charges, had they actually prosecuted, number one, the report basically says that they have absolute evidence, concrete. There's no way he would have gotten away with this. He would have been charged with conspiracy to defraud the United States, obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy to interfere with the rights of voters, and mishandling classified information, obstruction of justice, conspiracy. And then making false statements. And then the other potential charge, which Smith admits he wasn't going to go through with because it's very difficult to prove, would have been the incitement of the January 6th riots. So they had this document shows the evidence behind all of those accusations. There is no arguing that it didn't happen, that it was a mistake. There's no argument to be made. He absolutely did that. It says, as alleged in the original and superseding indictments, substantial evidence demonstrates that Mr. Orange then engaged in an unprecedented criminal effort to overturn the legitimate results of the election in order to retain power. Although he did so primarily in his private capacity as a candidate and with the assistance of multiple private co-conspirators, Mr. Orange also attempted to use the power and authority of the United States government to further his scheme. As set forth in the original superseding indictments, when it became clear that Mr. Orange had lost and that lawful means of challenging results had failed, he resorted to a series of criminal efforts to regain power. This included attempts to induce state officials to ignore the true vote counts, to manufacture fraudulent slates of presidential electors in 7 states that he had lost. Manufacturing fraudulent slates of presidential electors in 7 states, you guys, like that. I can't even believe that this person was allowed to run. Okay, it says he tried to force the DOJ officials and his own vice president, Mike Pence, who they interviewed extensively for this, a lot of evidence came from him, to act in contravention of their oaths and instead advance Mr. Orange's personal interests. And on January 6th, to direct an angry mob to the U.S. Capitol to obstruct it's so ridiculous, to obstruct the congressional certification of the presidential election. And then leverage rioters' violence to further delay it. He worked with other people to achieve a common plan to overturn the results and perpetuate himself in office. These individuals included co-conspirator 1, a private attorney who was willing to spread false claims and pursue strategies that Mr. Orange's campaign attorneys would not. Co-conspirator 2, another private attorney who devised and attempted to implement a strategy to leverage the vice president's ministerial role in the certification proceeding. So all the attorneys that he hired to advise him how to do this are co-conspirators. Co-conspirator 3, another private attorney whose unfounded claims of election fraud embraced and publicly amplified everything. Co-conspirator 4, a DOJ official who worked on civil matters and who, with Mr. Orange, attempted to use the DOJ to open sham election crime investigations and influence state legislators with knowingly false claims of election fraud. Co-conspirator 5, a private attorney who assisted in devising and attempting to implement a plan to submit fraudulent slates of electors. Co-conspirator 6, a private political consultant who helped implement a plan to submit fraudulent slates of presidential electors. Oh, God. The through line of all of Mr. Orange's criminal efforts was deceit, knowingly false claims of election fraud, and the evidence that Mr. Orange, yeah, well, he's not president yet, remember. I mean, President Biden is our president. I'm just saying. Mr. Orange's false claims included dozens of specific claims regarding certain states, such as that large numbers of dead non-residents. So it just goes through all the claims he made and explains exactly what he did, which we all know. Most of this is all public. I asked ChatGPT if there was anything new, and it said pretty much no, because I couldn't keep it all straight when I was reading it. It says he always intended to say he was going to be the winner, which he stated, and we heard him say that, and people reported that he said that. He said that in documents, and that's proven here that he said that to multiple people. I'm just going to prove that I win no matter what. Co-conspirator 3 claims, so these co-conspirators are being investigated and indicted, so they are spilling the beans, and a lot of their information is in this report. So co-conspirator 3 claims that Mr. Orange privately acknowledged how crazy it was before he publicly amplified these claims. Mr. Orange made comments implicitly acknowledging that he knew he had lost. For example, and then it gives examples in 2021 at the Oval Office meeting. He stated in part, "It's too late for us. We're going to have to give it to the next guy," meaning Joe Biden. He's so stupid. He's such. He aimed his deceit at the U.S. process of collecting, counting, and he aimed his deceit at the United States process of collecting, counting, and certifying votes, which flows from the Constitution and a federal law enacted in 1887 called the Electoral Count Act. So, I mean, if he did this, there's no reason to think he didn't do it again. He wasn't. They have to be investigating now. If he already did this and this investigation proved this, and other investigations either have to have already been launched or are going to be launched. You could not see this and go, okay, we're not going to investigate now, though. You know what I mean? There's just no way. Through state laws, all 50 states and the District of Columbia have chosen to select electors based on the popular vote. Therefore, after Election Day, pursuant to the ECA, each state formally determines... Okay, so it explains the Electoral College. We get that. Then it goes into his pressure on state officials. He talks about Mr. Orange contacted state legislators and executives, pressured them with false claims of election fraud in their states, urged them to take action, to ignore vote counts, and to change results. Over 200 people were interviewed and gave information about this. He made election claims only to state legislators and executives who shared his political affiliation and were his political supporters. So he wasn't just blanket going around, obviously. He was contacting specific people that he thought would, be on his side. And that is why there are so many co-conspirators and people being charged with things, being investigated, I should say. Co-conspirator 1 called the Speaker of Arizona House of Representatives on November 22nd and used false fraud claims to try to convince the Speaker to call the state legislature into session and replace Arizona's legitimate electors with Orange's. Co-conspirator 1 tried to coerce the Arizona Speaker, including by telling him, we're all kind of Republicans and we need to be working together. The Arizona Speaker refused to do what he was asked and requested that co-conspirator 1 provide evidence to support his claims. Co-conspirator 1 not only failed to ever provide such evidence, but he conceded to the Arizona Speaker in an in-person meeting a week later. We don't have the evidence. We just have a lot of theories. Mr. Orange similarly leaned on other state officials, always those of the same political party. So it was all Republicans. This is from the Jack Smith report released this morning. the investigation into interference and conspiracy and all of that. When the Secretary of State refuted Mr. Trump's false fraud claims, Mr. Orange issued a threat stating that because the Secretary of State knew what they did and you're not reporting it, that's a criminal offense. And you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you. Mr. Orange also pressured state legislators in Michigan by inviting them to the White House on November 20th, raising false claims of election fraud and bringing co-conspirator 1 into the meeting by phone. Mr. Orange said he lost the election not because of fraud, but because he had underperformed with educated females. So then it goes on to say that Orange, thank you for all those likes. I know that your finger's getting sore, Tasha. I know that you're doing that and I appreciate it. Mr. Orange engaged in these efforts even though trusted state and party officials had told him from the outset that there was no evidence of fraud. In Arizona, Mr. Orange called the governor on November 9th, a week after Election Day, after both Fox News and the Associated Press had projected that he had lost. Using a baseball metaphor, the governor told Orange that it was the ninth inning, 2 outs, and he had several runs down. During the call, Mr. Orange raised false claims of election fraud. The governor asked Orange to send evidence of the election fraud, and Mr. Orange suggested he would do so. So that's my opinion, though. So the chairman explained that there were still roughly 1,750,000 mail-in ballots being counted, which were expected to weigh heavily in Mr. Biden's favor. In the course of conversations like these, state officials, better positioned than Mr. Orange to know the facts in their states, repeatedly told Orange that his fraud claims were unfounded. So then it goes into Orange's fraudulent elector plan. Oh, hi, Bad. I haven't seen you in a while. On December 14th, this is the fraudulent elector plan. The date the ECA required each state's electors votes and send their certificates of vote to Congress, Mr. Orange and co-conspirators together launched another plan. Under this plan, they would organize the people who would have served as Trump's electors had he won the popular vote in 7 states that he had lost: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and cause them to sign and send to Washington false certifications. So he didn't just try to get them to change. He told them he wanted them to send fake, false certifications to Washington saying that he won. He just wanted them to just lie, just do it. Well, it's just been released. It's been investigated this whole time. It's huge, And he had they kept pushing things back. He kept, their attorneys know the law. They've used everything they could to extend it because they were trying to get to this day now, so that he could get to the 20th of January and be in. That was the goal. So this has been really they've been neck and neck, in my opinion. The fraudulent elector plan's arc is reflected in the series of memoranda drafted in late November and early December by co-conspirator 5, who initially portrayed it as a contingency to preserve the possibility that his electors' votes would be counted on January 6th if he prevailed in ongoing election litigation. So they'd had backup plans just to try to make him win no matter what. But as described below, the plan quickly transformed into a corrupt strategy to obstruct the certification proceeding and overturn the valid election results. I just want to say to Robert and other, first of all, your name is Bruce Campbell, which is amazing. He's my favorite actor in the world. But the thing is to Kim. Orange set the fraudulent elector plan into motion in early December, ensured that it was carried out by co-conspirators and campaign agents as targeted states, and monitored its progress. During the call, co-conspirator 2 told a lie that the co-conspirators would use to induce the cooperation of many of the fraudulent electors, that Mr. Orange's electors' votes would be used only if ongoing litigation in their state proved successful. So they were lying to people to get them to get him to to do what they wanted. And these have been proven, and it's going to, let's see how. So, for the most part, the co-conspirators deceived Mr. Orange's elector nominees, Mr. Trump's elector nominees in the targeted states by falsely claiming that their electoral votes would be used only if ongoing litigation were resolved in Mr. Orange's favor. I'm just going to say, I don't want to say it because I don't want bots in here, but, oh, no problem. No problem, Robert. Indeed, the co-conspirators deliberately withheld from the elector nominees information showing otherwise. This deception was crucial to the conspiracy, and that's how they can prove conspiracy, is by proving the deception. The phone calls, the documents where they actually lied to manipulate people into doing this stuff. They've been able to prove conspiracy to do these crimes. As many who participated as fraudulent electors would not have done so had they known the true extent of the co-conspirators' plans. Not all of Mr. Orange's elector nominees were persuaded, forcing the co-conspirators to recruit substitutes in some of the targeted states. For example, one Trump... God damn it, I can't stop saying... It's hard not to say his name when I'm reading this. For example, one Orange elector nominee in Pennsylvania recognized the plan as illegal and attempted to overthrow the government, and so he declined to participate. Conversely, a select few of Mr. Dump's agents and elector nominees had insight into the ultimate plan to use the fraudulent elector certificates to disrupt the congressional certification on January 6th and willingly assisted.